didn't quite have that last part of the play right a few times. I think we had 3 tries ruled out for various reasons, all correctly. The closest call was maybe one of Marshall's that was ruled out for a forward pass from an offload from Gildart that I sort of thought came back out the hand but kind of span forward, but it ended up in front, so it's understandable why it was given. So Wigan were still not quite clicking in attack, if you know what I mean, but
Yeah.
but we're making the meters and preventing the other side from making the meters, which meant that Wigan won the battle physically, definitely. And it's a good job that Wigan didn't win that battle physically, because Hull were a threat, particularly on their right-hand edge with Kelly, Connor and Faremo. And both of Faremo's tries are well worth watching. The first one was really beautifully worked. I've seen them put this play on before on both sides of the pitch, and it's a really good line running from the winger. The second one was an absolutely fantastic offload from Jake Connor, and just another shining example of why he's in the England squad. His goal kicking was reasonable too, but he missed. He missed one narrowly in the worst of the conditions. Pretty much came around about the time when he was having to go for that second goal from the touchline, and he just couldn't get it, unfortunately. But it was a very good effort, that's for sure. I mean, everyone clapped it just for the effort, let alone even though it missed, and we were Wigan fans clapping it. That's how good an attempt it was in the weather conditions at that time. Wigan's tries, the first one came from a long breakaway where Shaw just about stopped Marshall getting to the try line, but George Williams picked it up in a bit of space, saw where the space was right over the other side of the pitch, put a kick through that Sargentson, just got down before the in-goal line. Great finish by Sargentson on that one, and great vision by George Williams, and he pulled it off with execution just about. George Williams was a huge threat in this game, but similar to what we'd seen happening in recent weeks, Williams wasn't having the support from the players around him. So he was making breaks and people weren't with him, they weren't reading what he was going to do. He still needs to work a bit on his communication, his organisation, and telling players kind of what he thinks might be on. He can play what's on very well, but the other players are playing to a structure and not reading that. If he was playing in the lead side...
He needs to lead them.
If he
needs to not just play the tune, but he needs to lead them, conduct the orchestra as well.
No, exactly. If he was playing in the lead side, they'd have people all around him. Wigan don't play to that structure, but what he needs to be sort of, and I know it's hard for him to tell someone that he's going to fancy a run when he sees it as an opening, but if there was one or two players that they brought into a session with him, really, to say, get around these situations when he's going to do it, you break structure, that would be really helpful for both George Williams' confidence and the Wigan's attacking performance, because George Williams was...
And that's something that should come out of their video review, isn't it? They'll be sitting down with the video and saying, right, how could we have, watch this play back? You give me a way we do it differently, you give me a way we do it differently.
It is, and I don't think it's something Wigan do particularly great with on their work when working on their attack, but it's something that I think Hull have done very well with. They had... The most scintillating passage of the game was when the weather was at its absolute worst and there'd been a few knock-ons both ways and scrums exchanged, but then Faremo threw a ball at pace to Tumavarvi that no one was expecting to be thrown, let alone caught and stuff. And then off the back of that, there was a couple of offloads. If you watch the highlights of the game, I'm sure they should show this piece of footage in the highlights of the game. I've watched them on the Wigan website, so maybe I've seen different cut of the highlights, but it was brilliant play, but it ended with Gildart forcing Tumavarvi into touch as well, so it was brilliant play all around. It was very exciting, so credit to Hull FC for some aspects of the way they played, credit to Wigan for winning this one. You've seen the winning try, I assume, Tim?
Oh, definitely. I've watched it back several times just to work out how on earth it happened a few times. I sort of rewound it. I watched it on the phone last night and I was like, hang on, where did that come from? And I like the classic players of, it was deliberate. It was, we did that deliberately. Of course you did, boys.
Well, it was one of the few times England were very good at being reactive to what was on offer, rather than falling back into a structure as soon as they got the ball. Really quick thinking by Ben Flower. Really good long pass by Sean O'Loughlin. Looped out wide to Marshall, who finished it well as well. So really exciting stuff. Absolutely buzzing at the end of it. I'm glad we won it with a try rather than
a drop goal.
A drop goal, and a ropey try rather than a ropey drop goal as well. Is a much better way to win the game. I think, like I said, Wigan were better up to the 20-metre line than Hull FC were, and that's what won us the game ultimately in the end. Let's run through some stats. This game surpassed the Leeds Saints game from the night before in terms of tackle bust and missed tackles, with 109 of each in total, so that's the most in any game so far this season. Hull fell slightly on the wrong side of these numbers, but it was another game with both sides falling below 90% team tackle success rates, but that didn't affect the enjoyment and excitement of the game again. So that was good to see. It was also a game with the highest number of clean breaks this year, 24, despite ending up with only 4 tries in total. Shows scrambling defences were strong. Tries were shared evenly, but Wigan had 2 more breaks. Wigan also had 294 more metres and 1 fewer handling error. Wigan did give away 1 more penalty, but the overall count of 7 penalties was the lowest in any game in any Super League game so far this season. So well done to both sides there. Well done to the referee. I do think with a low penalty count, you can end up seeing things that would normally be penalties and getting frustrated that they're not getting given, and the penalties that are given are occasionally somewhat of a lottery. But he certainly didn't. Everything he gave as a penalty did appear to be a penalty, so you can't knock him for that. And neither side got the wrong end of it either which way. There were a few knock-ons that I think maybe were backwards rather than knock-ons from both sides, but when you see balls get spilled, you call knock-ons. That's fair enough, isn't it? It's a skill thing rather than they still dropped the ball by not doing well enough. So all in all, I think the game was controlled pretty well from that point of view, and exciting contest for everyone who watched it, and I'm sure Hull will have come away feeling like with still a bunch of players out, there's still a lot in that for them to be positive about against a top 4 side that had fewer players out than they had out. Wigan only had, really from our first choice side, we only really had Joe Burgess, Liam Farrell, obviously the Ginger Pearl important miss, and Talia Matautai and Ryan Sutton. So 4 players out. Plus
fair,
John
they are
Tompkins
all
that you can
players
throw
in positions where you've got backup.
Because Wigan have got a strong
squad.
You've
got adequate backup.
Yeah, and the injuries are spread out across the squad too. Those small number of injuries that
they're not in one position or in one area.
So because Wigan were at quite, Wigan had all their England players playing, for example, and all of the England players played really, really well. John Bateman looked like he should have gone off the field injured on at least 2 occasions and didn't, and did meaningful things.
That's classic Bateman, isn't it?
If before the Salford against Widnes game, they were talking about no, it wasn't. It was Wakefield against someone last week on Sky coverage, when they were talking about who's like the hardest players and stuff like that. Well, John Bateman for me has to be the hardest player in Super League, given how injured he looks all the time, and he still puts in a match-winning important efforts. Engaged, including
that to me is why he should be in the international setup, because he is someone who will, and it's similar to Sam Burgess, is that someone you can knock lumps out of. You can pick up some, what for mere mortals would be game-ending or season-ending injuries, and they would just carry on.
I'm still convinced he must have broke his arm when Paulie landed on it, or Fafita, whoever it was last week, and he obviously hasn't. Individually, Liam Marshall. So Bateman doesn't actually make the individual stats roundup. He was very, very close to it with what he did, but some other people had some stellar numbers that needed highlighting, really. So just because he's not in this list, don't think that he didn't perform well as an England player. Heading into Denver. But Liam Marshall with a try, 6 tackles, 154 metres and 2 clean breaks. Tom Davies with 5 tackles, 174 metres, 2 clean breaks. His finishing is a worry because he had another opportunity that he should have taken, so it's something that he needs to work on himself in training, but it'll come because everything else is there for that kid. George Williams, 1 try assist, 14 tackle busts, 193 metres, 6 clean breaks, a threat in this game. And Sean O'Loughlin, who for me, he played an 80-minute performance for Wigan, which he hasn't been able to do very often of late, with it, being 35 years old now and all of those sorts of things. But he was absolutely magnificent. He was the man of the match for me. He was the most important player on the pitch for Wigan, and he was able to pull off that match-winning pass for the try as well, right near the end of the game. Sean O'Loughlin ended with 1 try assist, 5 tackle busts, 138 metres, and 3 successful offloads. For the losing, valiant losing Hull KR side, Burita Framo, 2 tries, 15 tackle busts, 120 metres, 3 clean breaks. Jake Connor, 1 try assist, 115 metres, 3 clean breaks. Another England man in the stats roundup. Albert Kelly, 1 try assist, 8 tackle busts, 144 metres. And Albert Kelly played really, really well. He defended pretty tough as well in this game. To be fair to someone who we've slagged off before, haven't we, for the paper nature of his tackling efforts on occasion. The one criticism to be labelled at Albert Kelly was what John picked up on in his review, which is some poor kicking decisions. In the last 2 minutes of the game, Hull's last 2 possessions, he put in 2 very poor kicks that didn't threaten at all, and Wigan were able to win the game, see the game out off those 2 really poor kicks that Albert Kelly put in. So that's something there to note, but he was very threatening for much of the game and had a good show. Carlos Tumavari, 139 metres. Scott Taylor was the only England player who wasn't really that impressive, and I think the Wigan forwards were the better forward pack, and that's kind of sums that up. Okay, on to Sunday's games. Wakefield 30, Warrington 32. It was all over at half time, it seemed like. 22-6 to Warrington in front of 5,034. Yeah. Chris Kendall was the referee to watch the Wakefield near comeback, and Warrington just about hold on. We had a couple of views. Do you want to start with Wakey White?
Yeah, Wakey White said, another great game down at the Mobile Rocket / Wires. Oh, sorry, that's not a slash. Wires extra class allowed them to build a couple of big leads, but Wakey kept the intensity up all game and could have nicked it at the death. Seen some really great games in Super League lately. This one was right up there.
Brian Davies said, superb first half by Wire won them this game. A great improvement by Tring got us back into it, but our last try with just 21 seconds left was too late. Tring can match it with the big boys, and it won't be too long before we start beating them. Best thing is that we played exciting rugby that is a joy to watch, win or lose. Yeah, it does sound like a thriller.
Yeah, I listened to
parts of this one on the radio. I'm just going to get the review up. What have you caught from this one?
Not much, if I'm honest, other than the newspaper report and a very attractive photo of Ben Westwood, even by his standards. But it seems, it just seems what the guys have said really, that Wakefield doing all the right things, but just not quite getting there, and that will set them up well in terms of performance for the season.
Yeah, there was some really nice tries scored by Warrington in that first half. Ratchford's, I think it was Ratchford's second where he had a bit of interplay with Josh Charnley, was a neat one to watch. Tom Lynham's try came off some really good play from Bryson Goodwin, who featured quite heavily in the highlights package for everything good that Warrington were doing in attack. So obviously he's getting involved a bit more there as one of their, maybe not the marquee man in terms of the way his salary works out, but one of their main signings for this year and a star performer for them. For Wakefield, the comeback seems to have been inspired by little Kyle Wood. I mean, he grabbed a couple of tries. One of those was him chasing and following up on his own kick, I think, that he got to. But that inspired things. Tom Johnston scored a try that gave him a lot of hope, especially because Ryan Hampshire was flawless with the kick, and this was from out, a couple from out wide. Paulie ran through a huge hole with a couple of minutes left.
Well, it would need to be, wouldn't it?
Well, exactly, for him to go in untouched. Exactly. And Hampshire goaled that, but it was just, by the time the goal was kicked and stuff, it was just too late. But it's exciting. Exciting stuff. The highlights, you felt the excitement through reading the match report. It seems like it really was a thriller. So it's good that there's another great close game amongst the sides in the top half of the table.
Yeah. So anything more on this one, or should we move on to the stats?
Let's move on to the stats, because that covers the main remaining point to kind of go through on this game, I think, really. This game had more goals kicked than any other game so far this year, with 13 from 13 by the kickers in total. Warrington kicked 8 goals, and that was ultimately what won them the game, as Wakey scored an extra try than their victors, but not as many goals. Stats were a bit all over the show. Wakey made more metres, but Wyre made them at a better average gain and had an extra